Hey guys, welcome to the CO visit. Colin here, and today I have trusty soda. I don't have trusty coffee. I actually just got done eating lunch, and right after I eat, I have a little bit of soda. Heaven forbid I eat anything during a video because all the neurotic people go insane. So just like the last video I did, and this guy commented, uh, "Please shut off your dryer." I don't have a dryer. Okay, interesting. That's why sometimes it's good to ask first. As you can see, okay, up there, this is through the whole house. All the houses here have metal roofs. It's a roof made out of aluminum and zinc laminates. And when they get hot or when they cool down, they expand or they shrink. Okay, so I'm sorry about that. It's just different place, different building materials, and I don't command the laws of physics. So sorry about that. Okay. If you're that neurotic, maybe you shouldn't watch these videos because there's a lot of background stuff going on in my videos, and such is life. Well, what I want to talk about today, straying from the topic a little bit, but I think it's good to also look at some other things going on in the world because, in some way or another, it's going to relate to the whole JW topic and world and everything and experiences, but just looking at in general in the world things that are going on. And it caught my eye recently, the situation that's happening right now with this man, who murdered the CEO of the United Health insurance company. And, there's a whole bunch of stuff behind that and that company. And people, what's interesting is, just to give you guys a little bit of background, and this is something I didn't talk about on here because of all the other stuff that was going on with my daughter. But interestingly, right before this happened, right before that CEO was shot in New York, my stepmother, my father's wife, my dad got remarried. Mom and dad divorced, and he got remarried. A very, very special lady, very nice lady. And I'm not going to mention names or anything like that. But about a week or two ago, about 2 weeks ago, she had a very serious situation happen. And it was very scary. And it was, really, really a heavy thing that happened all of a sudden. And basically, she got a blood clot in one of her legs. And the blood clot broke free and went up into her lung. So this one day, she all of a sudden started like couldn't breathe, and was just getting like pale. And so they went to the emergency room. And interestingly, while they were there, now my dad and his wife are already retired, and she just got on Social Security, but they've had a lot of problems with that, just getting by, and they've had a lot of issues with their health care, with their health insurance, and through Medicare. What I see, it's not United Health, but it's just it's all related because this is going on to literally millions and millions and millions of people who are just struggling, trying to get by. They need you know medicines, they need procedures, and the insurance companies makes it very difficult for them to get those. And in some cases they can't, and they have to pay out of pocket or just not do it. So she went to a emergency room, this is in Minnesota, and ended up having to get, they stabilized her, but she had to get transferred to another hospital, something to do with the procedure that they needed to get, and the insurance, where they would cover it. So she had to go in an ambulance trip 2 hours away to go to a hospital that would take her in and cover this procedure that she needed to do. So she got I think it was an MRI scan or a CAT scan or something of that nature, and ended up getting a surgery where they went in and they put a device in there that opened up the vein, and they were able to extract or whatever they did with. I don't know how the procedure was. My dad didn't even understand it that well, but they were able to get the blood clot out of there, and it was a miracle. Literally, if they would have been any later, she would be dead. The doctor said he can't explain how she survived. It was literally a miracle because this big part, the blood clot, he said was really big, and it broke free like two pieces. Two pieces broke free, went up into her lung, and were going to go into her heart. But the two blood clots got wedged in the vein in just a way that a little bit of blood was able to get through. That's why she was still breathing. And if that would have went any farther, she would have had a massive heart attack right there. So they went in, they cleaned the blood clots out, and the other one that was still in her leg, they put her on blood thinners and said that that should clear it up, quote unquote. So she's been pretty tough shape after that. She's been pretty weak, just been in bed. Uh, they told her to try to get up a little bit and do some things, but she's still been really like weak and pale. And that was coming off of she had to get a colonoscopy a few weeks before that. So she was on a 2 week fast, basically, where you couldn't eat anything. And they had all these chemicals and stuff and barium solution and all this crap that was cleaning her out. And so that could have led up to some of this as well. So, case in point, she almost died. I mean, she was about this close. It's an absolute miracle. And then after that, they've had to be running all over the place. My dad had to, once she got back home, I had to drive all over the place, all over the metro area, like 2 hours in any direction, looking for different pharmacies, for a pharmacy that would cover the medicine she has to be on. Because now all of her medicines that she was taking, they had to change them based on the fact that now she has to be taking these blood thinners, and it just messed everything up. And there's all these pharmacies and different plans and stuff that won't take, or they won't cover this, or they want you to pay that, and they've ended up having to spend a lot of money on this medicine that she's taking now. So, case in point, this just happened, in with my dad and his wife recently. That was very stressful, and then all that stuff started to happen with Cosette, and it was really hard. But it was really a scare. It was a big scare. So let's go back to the whole United Health thing. I just want to make a disclaimer right here at the beginning. I am in no way condoning, nor am I signing off on or in agreement with acts of violence. However, I understand it. It doesn't surprise me whatsoever. And you know what, guys? He's not going to be the last one. If you ever notice something, and you know how people talk about the Matrix, and you know what, there's some element of truth to that, guys. The Matrix, all those movies that really had an underlying message to it about society. There is some truth to that. When you look at this situation, and a guy kills a CEO, somebody responsible for driving the profit of a company like United Health. And if you saw in the thumbnail or the community post that I put up today, a healthcare company, insurance company that netted in 2023, let's just round up, a cool 24 billion, that's with a B, billion dollars in net income, net profit. 24 billion. You can bet that when that happens, just like you're seeing right now, the matrix gets activated. You touch a CEO who's responsible for driving a multi-billion dollar healthcare company, you can bet that just like that, all the acronyms and all of the initials of the matrix will start activating. The police forces, the attorney generals, the AGs and the DOGs and the FBIs and the CIAs and all of them. National level manhunt trying to find this guy. And now they're coming up with pictures and hotels and buses and camera footage and backpacks, and they want this guy something fierce. Because it's just like in the Matrix. You start fucking around with the Matrix, you start fucking around with the NPCs who don't want to wake up, they don't want to let go of their reality, they start lashing out. Now, what happens when, Joe Blow shoots a Colin Zafke or one of you? Well, you get thoughts and prayers. You get thoughts and prayers. That's what happens. You don't get a national manhunt. You don't get all the acronyms coming after that person. But a multi-billion-dollar company loses their CEO, and all of a sudden, just like the Joker said, everybody loses their mind. And I can understand, and you guys can probably understand why it's happening as well, because people have had enough of it. These companies are getting richer and richer and richer, taking in billions of dollars, while the working class people can barely get coverage for the healthcare that they need. In some cases, they can't get it. We are getting sicker and sicker. Our claims are getting denied. We're getting denied because of age, because of pre-existing illnesses, or your insurance simply doesn't cover that procedure, or you have deductibles so big that you can't afford it. And you get a person who's in that kind of a situation, or somebody who lost a family member, or who's part of a community who day after day after day, they're hearing of other friends of theirs in their community losing family members, losing limbs, losing this, losing that, because they can't get the health insurance coverage that they need. And then you put into that mix, they have a gun. And now with social media, where everyone has a platform, you can go online, you can voice your views and get followers and get other people, like-minded people that agree with what you're saying and will motivate you. And next thing you know, you've got a person just like this hooded figure, masked figure, who's going to go out there and he's going to be the vigilante. He's going to be the Dark Knight and give a voice to all those people without a voice. And voila, he goes out and he mows down in plain daylight the CEO on the New York streets. He's not the first, he's not the last. This is going to keep happening, people. It's going to keep happening because there are people out there that have decided they've had enough. And they're going to take the law into their own hands. And they are going to go after these people. I'll give you guys a little, vision, a little glimpse into what happened here in Honduras as well. In countries where nobody cares, like Honduras, where life has no value, people are expendable. The government here, just to give you an example, this isn't about healthcare because we don't have that same system here. But when the pandemic hit, and I'm sure this happened in other places as well, I heard horror stories from the US as well, but here we saw it just blatant right out there in plain daylight. This was going on. When the pandemic hit and the Honduran government and health system was getting a lot of foreign aid that was coming in. We were getting all of the vaccines, and there was all of a sudden they could pass because they declared a national emergency because of the pandemic, which freed up money, which just streamlined the purchasing process. It eliminated the uh, where people have to, like, companies have to come in and make bids and all of that. They eliminated all that. The government could just directly contract the purchase of materials and mobile hospitals and oxygen, and so of course the whole debacle just went off. The gates were open and away they went, and there were all kinds of cases of corruption, of people, making money with their. They had pharmacies. They would set up pharmacies in their names, and just all kinds of things with the masks, with the vaccines. All this stuff was coming from, most of it from the U.S. We did get some. We did get some vaccines from China. We got some from Russia, and the majority came from the U.S. with Pfizer and with Moderna and all these other vaccines. But we did get some of the Sputnik ones and whatever the ones were from China. I don't even remember the names. So what happened? The whole country basically shut down during that time. Everybody was on lockdown. And basically during that 2.5 year period, literally, and I'm not even exaggerating, guys, any other sickness or disease or illness disappeared. There was nothing anymore. Everything was COVID. No heart disease, no diabetes, no dengue, no malaria, no high blood pressure, no kidney failure, no cirrhosis, no nothing. If you went to the hospital during that 2 year period, you weren't coming back. That was the bottom line. And that's why the anxiety level, the fear level of the population here went through the roof. And a lot of times what happened was people with pre-existing conditions who were so afraid and anxious, of course, stress lowers your immune system. It will make them more susceptible to getting something like COVID. And then they would contract COVID and they would say, well, COVID killed them. Well, not technically. They got COVID, which aggravated another pre-existing condition that they had, like a heart condition or whatever, and they ended up having a heart attack, but they attributed everything to COVID. So the doctors basically had the order, anybody that comes into your hospital, whatever it is, it's COVID, because that's the way they kept getting funding, and they kept getting more funding and more funding and more funding. Look at all these people dying. All these people are dying. We can't control it. We need more money. We need more this. We need more that. And then with all that material later on, people were able to start their own businesses with all of these, machines that came in and all the medical supplies and all this stuff. That's how it works. Huge business. So literally, even right here in the town that I live in, there were several parents of students that I had that went into the hospital and never came back. They never saw them again. And of course, during that time, because they said that they were still contagious, the bodies were still contagious, you could get infected even after they were dead, which is what they were saying. If the person went into the hospital and ended up dying, you didn't have any contact with your loved one. The hospital would simply alert you that they died, and then they would put the person in a coffin. They would seal the coffin. They would wrap it up in saran wrap, basically, or whatever it was, plastic. And then they would take the coffin to a mass grave. They would take the family members in another vehicle. You would be about a football field away, and you would observe them putting 5 or 6 or 8 or 10 coffins, and they would say, well, your family member is one of those. And you could observe it, but you could not get close to it. You couldn't open the coffin. You couldn't see them. And this was happening all over the place. This was happening all the time. And then later on, when things started to lighten up a little bit and they started actually giving the coffins to people, but they would say, you can't unseal the coffin and, whatever. Well, there were families that, of course, they weren't going to listen to that. Once they had the coffin and they got it home, they were opening that thing up. And you know what they found out? What happened a lot of times here? The coffins were empty. The body of their loved one, they didn't know. Or even worse, they got somebody else's body. There was a case of a family up on the North Coast in a city called Saba, where the majority of the population there are Afro descendants. Okay, so they're black. And there was a family, and this was on the news, that went to have a funeral for their family member, and they decided to open the coffin. And lo and behold, they opened the coffin, and here's the dead body of this tall, white, blonde-haired, blue-eyed European guy. He was a German national who was a resident of Honduras that had died. And here's this black family going, I mean, come on, mate. And I don't know in the end whatever happened. I never saw follow-up on that if they ever found the body of their family member. But this was going on all the time, guys. And you know what happened after that, guys? You know what happened a few years later? The people who were in government at that time that were in charge of the emergency situation, so the emergency department here and the all of that were in the government and the health, the health ministry of the government and all of that, they literally ended up turning themselves in for protection because the families of these people were attempting against their lives. They were getting their cars shot up. They were getting their homes shot up. People were following them. They were getting death threats. And finally, they had to turn themselves in and just say, like, hey, just investigate us. They were afraid. They were at any moment they were going to be killed. And this was happening here. And you know what? In my estimation, after all that happened, they had it coming. They had it coming because somebody had to be accountable. Somebody had to answer for the way our society, our people were sacrificed and butchered, all in the name of money. You see, a lot of those politicians saw, and many of the businesses as well, the private hospitals, the pharmacies, they saw a business opportunity to make money off of the pandemic. And this is what happens many times with these insurance companies in the US. They see people suffering as an opportunity to make money. Well, let's get as much money out of this person as we can. They're paying in, all these people are paying in, but you know what? We're not going to pay out shit. We're going to deny them through all this legal jargon and, oh, you don't apply because of this, you don't apply because of that, or you're too old, or you already had an existing condition and we don't allow that. Or they say, oh, we'll pay for it, but you have to pay this part of it. You have to pay this deductible, but it's so much the person can't pay it. They're on a fixed income or they're on Social Security or disability or whatever it is, and they don't have enough. Like in the case of my dad and his wife. So that hits home personally for me. As I said, I'm not condoning what that young man did, but I understand it. Because you got a person when they've got absolutely nothing left to lose and they want to, at the very least, if I'm going down or if they're going to take me out, I'm going to leave a message. I'm going to send a message to these insurance companies. You keep doing this, we're coming after you. And you get people in that kind of a mental state, or if they have some other mental health issue to begin with, and you put an AR-15 in their hands, well, there you go. It's another symptom of a sick society, a very sick society that is marginalizing its people to the brink of a breaking point. And we're already seeing that happen right now. And you know what, guys, like I said, and I can't, this is not an overstatement, and I cannot underestimate it enough. It's going to keep getting worse and worse and worse. Because people are fed up with just taking it. And they're fed up with the legal system. And they're fed up with the unfairness and the inequality of all of this. Working all your life, giving everything to the system just to get to retirement age, and then guess what? You get the shaft. And if you even do get to retirement age anyway, chances are, what I've also seen happen more than once on many occasions to many people that I've known through my life in the States, even in my own family, that got to retirement age, and then what happened? They had a stroke, they had some other problem, ended up having to go into the nursing home, and what happens? Everything they worked for, that house they paid a mortgage on for 30 plus years, the county takes it. The county gets a hold of all your assets, and they go through everything. They sell off everything, every single thing that you own, land, houses, cars, whatever it might be. And then once that's all gone, they take your social security and then they give you maybe $20 a month. Literal. That is reality. And you're left with absolutely nothing. That's the system we're living with right now, guys. So all the stuff we saw in the past, things that used to be fiction, science fiction, Asimov, Bradbury, Vonnegut, or Vonnegut, I should say, excuse me, Vonnegut, Kurt Vonnegut, Isaac Asimov, Ray Bradbury, George Orwell, all those things, the books about, like Divergent, and it's not science fiction anymore. Those were prophecies. And we're on the very cusp of seeing those things in our country beginning. And in some places, it's already well underway. You have to be careful in this matrix. You have to be careful. Just sit back and watch how this whole thing unfolds and how they're so desperate to find this guy, so desperate for justice. Well, it's all a matter of point of view, isn't it? Okay, guys, thanks for watching this episode of the CO Visit. Like and subscribe to the channel. Won't cost you a thing. Let's get that algorithm ramped up, get the messages out there so that more people can see it. Thank you for those who are subscribing. The subscribers, little by little, are always going up. We're on our way to 2,000. I hope that'll happen. I don't think it'll happen by the end of December, but I think, getting into 2025, we're going to break that, and that's going to be historic for this channel, and I appreciate that. So, thanks for joining me on this journey, and I hope you'll continue on with me. See you in the next one.